Have you ever heard the Ray Charles song, "Nighttime is the Right Time"? Perhaps this will come to mind. Do you recall the episode of The Cosby Show where the family had sang the song for their grandparents on their anniversary? Today's story is about a woman who had a tremendous voice that was almost magical. It's difficult to understand how a woman with such a lovely, strong voice can fade away so quickly from the public view, especially after creating such a first-grade impression. Before we get started in today's video, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to stay up to date. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. Margie Hendricks was born on March 13, 1935 in Register, Georgia, which is a small town in Bullock County. She was the youngest of 3 children born to Katie and Renzi Hendricks. When she was a toddler, her family would face tragedy as she lost her brother. While she was a teen, Hendricks, she would sing, play the piano, and manage her church choir. Her sister would relocate to New York in the early 50s, and she would follow her shortly after to pursue her goals in show business. By the age of 18, she would sign a deal with Lamp Records. In 1954, she would release 3 singles with Everything, Good Treatment, and Every Time. Because these 3 singles failed to chart, she would leave the label in 1955. The next year, she would get her big break where she would replace Bewlane Robertson in the groups The Cookies, joining Dorothy Jones and Darlene McCree. The group, they would eventually sign with Atlantic Records. Now with Atlantic, they would have a top charting R&B single with the song In Paradise. Under a tree in the garden. Ray Charles, he was introduced to the group during their tenure with Atlantic, and they would audition for him. Hendrix and McCree, they would quit the group in 1958 and they would form the Raylettes as Ray Charles' background singers. Patricia Lowes and Gwendolyn Berry would soon join them, making them a quartet. Ray would record his debut single with the group on October of 1958 called "Nighttime is the Right Time."
You know the nighttime now is the right time.
This song is well known for Hendrix' strong vocals. During this period, Hendrix and Charles, they would have a sexual connection when Charles was still married. He would ultimately get her pregnant, and on October 1st, 1959, she would give birth to their son, Charles Wayne Hendrix. She would attempt to persuade Charles to leave his wife and create a family with her after the birth of their son, but he would refuse. As we witness in the Ray Charles biopic, the duo's relationship was represented rather correctly. Tensions was very strong between Hendrix and Charles, yet they would work well enough together for hits like the 1959 single, What I Say,
Come and love you, daddy, all night long, all right now.
and the 1961 hit, Hit the Road Jack.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more.
Hendrix and Charles' relationship began to deteriorate around the early 1960s when she began to abuse drugs and alcohol. As a result, her career began to suffer, and the use of drugs and alcohol started to affect her work and her look and demeanor. She began picking fights during recording sessions, not only with Charles, but also with members of the group. Hendrix would also start turning up to gigs drunk. This would really irritate Charles because at this time his addictions was cigarettes and women after he left the drugs alone. The Raylettes would release a song in early 1964 titled A Lover Blues.
Sometime you beat me so right.
This single featured Hendrix on lead, also being the last song that Hendrix would record with Charles. During the tour in Europe in July of 1964, the two, they would get into a violent disagreement that apparently turned physical. Following this, Charles, he would formally dismiss Hendrix and send her back to the US. Hendrix would secure a solo deal with Mercury Records after leaving the Raylettes after being a member with them for 6 years. She would go on to release 5 singles, but all of them would fail. These singles was Now the Hurt's on You,
Without a word of warning, you walk out on me, and you left.
Baby,
Then you know my pain. In my heart,
Restless,
restless, can't stay here, no. Restless.
One Room Paradise, and
Some people live in a castle, yeah, with 60 or 70 rooms.
On the Right Track.
My mind is confused, and my life's been misused.
Hendrix would also try to release an album, but it was shelved due to her escalating drug and alcohol usage. In 1966, she would marry jazz musician Robert Folsom. On September 7th, 1967, the couple they would get into an automobile accident when a vehicle was hit by a lumber truck. The couple survived, although Hendrix had neck damage and she had lost a small piece of hearing in her right ear. She was eventually released from Mercury Records in late 1967 due to the poor quality of her music and her inability to chart. Hendrix and Folsom they were divorced in 1968, and that same year she would sign her second solo deal with Soundstage 7 Records. In 1971, she would become mentally ill, which forced her to withdraw from the public view. As a result, she would stop singing and she would spend the rest of her life abusing drugs and alcohol. On July 14th, 1973, Hendrix, she would sadly pass away at the age of 38. Her cause of death is uncertain due to the lack of evidence and with no autopsy being performed. However, most reports believe that she died from an overdose. There are other accusations that claim that she died in a vehicle accident or from cancer. Now, while there's been many speculations of how she died, it's safe to assume that the cause of her death is widely unknown. According to other stories, she lived in poverty at the time of her death. Hendrix and Ray's son would sadly pass away in 2013 of unknown causes. In 2004, she was portrayed by Regina King in the Ray Charles biopic, Ray. Now, like I said in my last 3 videos, I was able to find everything that I provided for y'all via the internet. It's not really a lot of things that can be found on Miss Hendrix, which is why in the Ray biopic, Regina King also struggled trying to portray Hendrix because there wasn't a lot of material out there for her to study on. So, what I would like for you guys to do, if you know Miss Hendrix, knew about her, played with her, anything of that sense, can you please let me know in the comment section below, because I would love to revisit this story and go deeper into it.